Hello and welcome back, and today I want to compare Synology and QNAP. And before you say it, yes, I'm well aware there isn't a unit here. Unfortunately, the demo sample that we were utilising of the brand new QNAP TS-h886, something I'm going to refer to just as the 886 for the rest of this video, unfortunately is not here for this comparison, although we've done loads of software overviews, hardware reviews and comparisons. So trust me, we know what we're talking about with today's video. We are comparing that QNAP, the ZFS powered QNAP, against that of the newly released Synology DS1621xs Plus. Both of these devices are technically 6 bays, although there is a price difference between them of about 150 to 200 nicker. Both of them represent kind of a big entry into the business class market from both of them. Both of them have a huge portfolio of home and business user devices and some high-level enterprise stuff. But these two solutions are kind of like the top tier SMB when small medium business starts dipping its toes towards enterprise, when you have businesses that want to buy a solution for today that's going to last them a great deal of time and opens the door to enterprise level features as well. Both of them are great solutions from both respective companies, and both of them are solutions that I've talked about here on the channel quite a lot. Why are we comparing them today? Well, two reasons. One, because you guys asked for it. That's where a lot of these comparisons come from, or when I'm messaged by you guys on any of the platforms that we run, or just directly at some trade shows when people ask about some of these events. And I know this year, COVID trade shows, not been many, have there? But the other reason we're comparing them is because both brands have now got a much more evolved 6-bay portfolio. There was a time that QNAP was the only brand out there that had good 6-bay solutions. They had the 73, the 53D series. You had loads of different 6-bays, but Synology had none, and it's only been in the last few years that we've seen them dipping a toe into the 6-bay market because of the desirability of RAID 6 and its 2-disk redundancy. 4 bays, not enough bays. 8 bays, too expensive. Boom, there's your 6-bay. So that's the reason for the popularity of 6 bays, and ultimately why we're comparing these two devices, which, although they have a relatively similar price point, actually bring very different things to the party. Now, I'm not going to talk too much about software like apps and DSM and QTS, largely because a lot of you will be buying these devices for 3 main reasons. You'll be buying it because of the file system inside. You'll be buying it because of the external connection between them and the speed at which it can give you, and ultimately how you use the device. The individual software and applications on both of them is still very impressive, with both of them arriving with their own proprietary platform in the form of DSM and QTS. Between the two of them, I would go as far as to say that if you want slick, hold your hand sort of nice user-friendly setup and forget kind of architecture, you're probably going to enjoy the Synology that little bit more. It's a little bit more user-friendly, but it does also feel a little bit restrictive if you're a techie user. Everything's very slick, very responsive. They have a background intelligent cache system. A lot of their applications are designed to replace a number of your first-party apps. Synology Chat replaces Skype and WhatsApp in your environment. You have got Synology Office, which allows you to replace the likes of Google Docs, Office 365 and stuff like that. There's Surveillance Station. They've got Active Backup Suite to replace enterprise-grade backup software across multiple areas. That includes VM backup as well. Synology's Virtual Machine Manager is a virtual machine tool for deploying multiple OS VMs from the device. You've got a multi-account and multi-app structure with a great floating point. You've got photo recognition in Synology Moments. You have the multimedia suite and support of third-party applications too. Now, in the case of the QNAP, you have got QTS, which although seems a little bit, and I do mean a little bit more intimidating and not quite as fluid and flush as the kind of Synology/Apple design, it has more apps, more experimental functionality with apps such as Virtual JBOD, Hybrid Mount, Multimedia Console as well. A far better means of creating indexes and indexing files and folders, as well as transcoding and background stuff. The virtualization station application covers more VMs, lets you download VMs directly within the tool for free. There's Linux Station, Container Station. There is just more features and functionality of those applications, but with it, the learning curve is a little bit higher. And between them, I would argue that the software, although more polished on the Synology, does feel a little bit limited because it says you need to do things this way so we can give you the best possible performance. So that will tell you to put files in certain folders. It will tell you these are the limitations and not let you exceed them. The Synology on the other hand, the QNAP on the other hand, will say, where do you want your files to live? We'll get our apps to work with it. It will say, how do you want to work? And we'll work around you. Because of that, its true performance and its top-end capabilities are only really limited by you, which, if you don't know what you're doing, are going to feel very tricksy, very troublesome. So it's a little bit more techy, but you do get more for it. Now, we're going to try and stir away from software, although it's going to crop up from time to time in this video. But the first thing we want to look at is price and value between these two devices. They have a very similar price point, with the Synology arriving at about $1,600 to $1,650, and the QNAP arriving at about $18 to $1850. So between them, $150 to $200 nicker price difference. So in terms of price point, there's no arguing that 1621 is the lower price. What you get with the base model, because that's what we're looking at, we're not saying about any upgrade cards or more memory or what drives, just as the base model, the 1621 is the lower price and therefore the better price. But it's not just price, is it? It's value and what you get for your money. Now remember, we're removing the idea of the software from the equation, but it's worth highlighting it in terms of what you get for your money and the value, ignoring software and going straight into hardware. You're getting way more with the QNAP. Not only have you got those 2 additional SSD bays on the front for SATA, so you've got 6 hard drive bays, you've got 2 SATA SSD bays, and you've got 2 NVMe SSD bays. And although you've got the NVMe bays on here, on the Synology, you don't get those 2 extra SSD bays. On top of that, the system itself has got 4 2.5 GBE ports there on the rear and 2 PCIe upgrade slots as well. On top of that, the CPU inside the QNAP is a little better, and I do mean a little, not a vast amount. They're both quad-core Xeons, but it's a newer generation Xeon inside the QNAP. On top of that, although both of them arrive with DDR4 ECC memory support, the Synology arrives with 8 GB by default, the QNAP with 16, with a higher maximum memory as well. So overall, in terms of value, you're getting more for your money with the QNAP. It is worth highlighting though 2 things. One, although this has got 2.5 GBE across 4 ports, giving a combined lag potential of 10G, this arrives with 10G by default and 2 1 GBE. So technically, if that's your priority, definitely something to consider. And the other thing is, remember, this is a hardware-software combined package. And that's where we're going to dip a little bit into software when it comes to value, because the Synology is geared more towards 60/40 in terms of that price point, what you get. They have spent so much of their R&D on that software, and fair play to them, it looks the business and runs like a dream. But if you're not interested in using their software, be it via the web browser, client apps for PC or Mac, or mobile apps for Android and iOS, you might not feel like you're getting that value because you're spending more for the software, which you might not use. So that's important. The second thing is that file system, because this is a rare occasion where ext4 is less relevant, because we are looking at BTRFS and ZFS. ZFS, ultimately between the two of them, if you look on lots of forums, you look on NAS Compares, you look on Reddit, you look on all those different websites, ZFS will always win the day. Yes, it's hungry. It needs more resources, but this has the resources to support it. It has triple parity RAID. It has effectively all the benefits of BTRFS, such as lower resource-hungry snapshots there in the background and file integrity checks. And they've both got ECC memory. But the RAID performance, be it build, rebuild, day-to-day rewrites, and stuff with data coalescing, and RAID resilvering when needed, it's just better on ZFS. With RAID rebuilding on ZFS, for example, if you've got 4 10TB drives with about a terabyte of data on them in a RAID 5, this device will have to rebuild everything. Even if you up the priority, it's still going to take a lot of time. ZFS will only need to build the data that's on the disk, and it knows, looking at the parity, thanks to ZFS, that this amount of the drive, that 9 out of 10 of the drive is empty, and it'll just go, yep, done. So it RAID rebuilds faster, it RAID builds faster, it RAID resilvers. It's just better overall. So in terms of value, I'm giving it to the QNAP. In terms of price, we've got to give it to the Synology. Now, internal performance is an interesting point. The pair of them do provide great internal performance, with both of them arriving with a multi-tiered storage system. Both of them have got 6 hard drive bays, supporting up to SATA hard drives at 16 to 18 TB maximum right now, and both of them arrive with NVMe bays, both of them PCIe Gen 3 times 4 slots inside to get that 4,000 megabytes per second speed maximum out of NVMe's inside, be they Synology's own proprietary SSDs or ones like Seagate or WD. But the QNAP arrives with those extra 2 SATA bays there on the front. So internal performance, if you fill up those bays, you're going to get more out of the QNAP. But it's worth highlighting that if you put 6 drives in both of them and 2 NVMe's inside both of them for caching, the performance on both of them is going to be very, very similar indeed. In fact, the CPU and memory inside is similar enough that you're not going to see an internal performance difference until you've got more concurrent or simultaneous users. That's when you're going to start seeing that performance difference moving towards the QNAP. ZFS and BTRFS, ZFS will give you better performance, it has to be said. BTRFS, in terms of internal read-write performance, is actually a pinch lower than that of ext4, and we found that out during RAID tests over 10G. But the internal performance between them, I would argue, with third-party software removing their own software from the equation, using their own BTRFS and ZFS file systems, and third-party apps, like if you're using Windows file transfer or backups or remote iSCSI VMs, you're going to get better performance out of the QNAP. Both with the proprietary 6 bays, NVMe's, and the CPU and memory combo that it's got, and when you ramp things up by adding those 2 SATA bays. Now, that's not really the end of it there, because you do have the NVMe bays in the QNAP are available for raw storage as well. So not only are they available for caching, they can be used for raw access storage. That's something that's not available on the Synology. And if you are going to talk about internal performance and you need things to run well, like you want some VMs to live on some high speed, low latency media, bung them on some NVMe's, beautiful. And if you have that running in parallel with the hard drives, so you've got bulk files living on there, but the core access files on the NVMe's or even just the SATA SSDs, you're going to get better internal performance on that QNAP with third-party apps. So let's talk external performance, and that's where things change it up a little bit, because as mentioned, the 1621xs arrives with 10 GBE on the rear there. It has a PCIe upgrade slot, PCIe Gen 3 x 8, so up to 8,000 megabytes per second bandwidth available to the internals on that single lane. But the 10 GBE is very interesting that arrives with that. That's something Synology have not really been on board with. 10 GBE is something they've kind of gone, nah, you're all right. But there's still no avoiding that the 10G is definitely one of the reasons people buy this device. It's a Xeon with NVMe SSD bays. It's got 10G on board. You're going to get a lot out of it with the ability to upgrade it later on. And the fact it's got 5 years of warranty, you definitely get a feeling this is a long-term solution that you're going to set up for your connected users in your business. However, the QNAP still brings 2.5 GBE across 4 ports. So again, with the right switch, you're going to get the opportunity for 10G there. But more appropriately, you've got 2 PCIe Gen 3 x 8 slots. You can upgrade to this device, which isn't ideal if we're going to compare base models, let's be honest. But you still have that upgradability. So on a day one base level, external performance-wise, on day one, you're going to get more out of the Synology. But it is worth highlighting that long-term, in terms of external performance, once you start looking at upgrading, once you start evolving the device, the QNAP has a better scope. It allows you to add 10G cards for multiple. You can have 2 dual-port 10G cards to add 4 10 GBE ports to this device, which, although the 6 hard drive bays may not allow you to max out those connections, the 2 additional SATA SSDs and the 2 internal NVMe's for raw storage as well will open the door to that multi-tiered, multi-speed access system with NVMe's at the top, SATA SSDs in the middle, and your hard drive RAID at the bottom with the right RAID matching those SSDs beautifully. So day one, the Synology wins. Later down the line, the QNAP, the tortoise and the hare situation, has the ability to gain ground, but it will cost you money to do that. Finally, storage. because both of them have gone slightly different routes in terms of storage. Both of them have got those 6 hard drive bays, but as mentioned, the QNAP does arrive with the NVMe ability for raw storage and those 2 SATA bays as well. But it is also worth highlighting that both of them can be expanded to a noticeable degree. The Synology allows you to add 2 5-bay expansions, the DX517, that are connected via eSATA, so 6 gigabits per second for each expansion with 5 bays of each, bringing you up to 16 bays of storage, supporting SATA 16 and 18 TB drives. That is a lovely amount of storage. Why they didn't include support of the 12-bay expansions? I queried this in my review and I still query it now. It might be a PCIe bandwidth issue from the CPU, but it would have been great to see an expansion card from QNAP, from Synology, that goes in that PCIe slot that allows you to add the proprietary SAS connection for the 12-bay expansion, something I've asked Synology about before. The QNAP, on the other hand, can be expanded by a wider range of expansions. They've got their own range of TL and TR, so that's JBOD SAS, proprietary external SAS, and TR hardware RAID expansions from 2-bay to 4-bay to 8-bay to rackmount to 16-bay desktops. There's a huge amount of storage potential. And those proprietary SAS ones, they arrive with a card included that lets you install it inside the QNAP in an available PCIe bay and expand your storage dramatically. Think of this 6-bay added on with a 16-bay expansion, or even 2 16-bay expansions. That's an enormous amount of storage, with the added benefit that those PCIe's allow up to 5,000 megabytes megabytes transmission between the expansions and the QNAP. So again, you could have 12 bays of storage and the 12 bays sharing a 5,000 meg bandwidth, theoretically, between it and the host system in terms of expandability. Both of those 5-bay expansions are using 6 gig. So that's 5 drives sharing 6 gig. So again, there is a comparable limit there, but it's all a long-term decision of how you're going to expand later on. A number of people, particularly business users, if you buy a 6-bay, you're looking at a RAID 6, which means of those 6 bays, only 4 drives worth of storage is going to be open to you. If you think about that lifespan, 3, 4, 5 years, you might run out of storage. So an expansion is definitely something you should be thinking about even at this early stage. I mentioned lifespan. It's worth highlighting that 5 years of warranty. I still think it's so good that they include that in the XS. It's a seal of approval. And it's something that I'm surprised QNAP doesn't get behind. They've got lots of 2 and 3 year warranties across their range, but only really the top tier racks have got 5 years. But the warranty on these devices can be extended with additional licenses. But again, it's a real shame it's not 5 years by default. Maybe that will change. I know QNAP has been changing a number of their warranties on their ranges since they've first been announced and revealed, and QNAP have listened to people. So maybe if you are watching this, there's a good chance that this device might be 5 years warranty by now, or maybe increased 3 or more. So do find out by checking the links in the description. But ultimately, between these two devices, I think it does come down to, like it always does with Synology versus QNAP videos, software versus hardware. They both bring great software and great hardware to the table, but the QNAP brings just a pinch better hardware and the Synology brings just a pinch better software. Think of it, console gaming versus PC gaming. Fixed fluidity and a nice, sensible, monitored system that does what you want it to do, but you can't tweak all the little bits to get it higher. Whereas the QNAP is PC gaming, where you can have a lot of tweaks, a lot of tinkering, and make a better overall performing system, but you've got to know a little bit more about what you're doing, and that can be a bit intimidating for some. Do let me know which one of these two devices interests you the most. We've got performance benchmarks on the QTS system already, but the Synology speed testing will hopefully be live, if not already, then in the next day or so. We've got 10G testing of a RAID 6 with AES NI encryption using AJA Blackmagic and Windows file transfer and some VM videos to follow that up. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Click like if you did and click subscribe to learn more. If you want to see more written words about NAS, then do visit NAS Compares in the description. We've got loads of guides, lots of fixes, lots of upgrades, and lots of hints and tips for you NAS users. Otherwise, visit span.com to buy your NAS today. And other than that, I will see you next time.